A number of you sent me a clip of Congresswoman Cori Bush claiming that red states have higher rates of murder and higher rates of gun deaths. And that is absolutely true. And I'm going to go over some of the data with you. Now, this is relevant because the story that the right loves to tell is how red states are safer and red cities are safer, and blue states and blue cities run by Democrats are just riddled with crime and they're dangerous, and that's really where all of the violence is. Let's first listen to what Cori Bush said, then we're going to look at some of this data.
In 2020, per capita murder rates were 40% higher in states won by Donald Trump than those won by Joe Biden. 9 of the 10 states with the highest gun mortality rates, including my state of Missouri, are red states. Mr. Wilcox, first of all, thank you for your strong, well-informed advocacy. I want to build on Mr. Nadler's question. Can you explain how the Iron Pipeline and weak Republican laws, gun laws, disproportionately harm Black and brown communities?
Yes, Ranking Member, and thank you for the question. As you stated, what we see pretty clearly from examining gun laws and looking at rates of gun violence is states with stronger gun laws see less gun violence. Why is that? It's because it's too easy for guns to be illegally diverted from legal commerce, responsible law-abiding citizens, into gun trafficking channels. What are the ways that that happens? No background check gun sales, straw purchasing.
Okay, so now they go into a number of the ways in which we could strengthen gun laws. But so is this the truth? You know, anecdotally, we keep hearing frequently now when Republicans talk about New York City, the accurate statement that the violent crime rate is higher in Oklahoma City than it is in New York City. Oklahoma City, a red city in a red state, compared to New York City, a blue city in a blue state. But this is actually a bigger trend. So let's look at a couple of different things. If you look at the 2020 homicide rate, and if you're looking, there's a graph here where you have states with the highest homicide rates at the top right and lower homicide rates as you go down to the bottom left. You see that the states with the highest homicide rates are Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Missouri, Arkansas, South Carolina, Tennessee, Maryland, Illinois, New Mexico, Georgia. You have this gradient wherein the homicide rates are notably higher in red states. You then go to firearms mortality, and you see a very similar story. The highest death rate from firearms is Mississippi, Louisiana, Wyoming, Missouri, Alabama, Alaska, blue state of New Mexico, followed by Arkansas, South Carolina, Tennessee, Montana, Oklahoma, Kentucky, West Virginia, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Nevada, Kansas, finally getting to Arizona. Okay, so there is no doubt whatsoever that that is the truth. It doesn't matter how you slice and dice the state numbers. Now, how would the right react to this? Well, one of the things that the right says when presented with this information, one of the things they say is the numbers aren't true. It's fake news. We can't believe it. It's all nonsense. You made that up. Okay. If you can get them to acknowledge these numbers, they will often say, well, but the crimes are mostly in the cities within those states, which are blue. Now, that's not actually true. It is true as a general rule that people on the left in the United States are more likely to live in urban areas, and people on the right are more likely to choose to live rurally and suburban. It's sort of a mix depending on the states that you're in. That is absolutely true. But in general, rates of crime can follow where people are closer together. But by looking at rates, we actually account for that. And there have been studies done that say, okay, fine, you can look at these cities if you want. And there are very high numbers of crimes because of the number of people. But you can chart these very large rural areas that cross many states on a map. And as far as rates of crimes go, they are still very high in those rural areas. It's just that the absolute numbers are lower because there are fewer people. But the truth is, if we want to be more serious about this, there is no one answer to this. Is it true that red states, on average, having more relaxed gun laws increases gun deaths? Yes, it is true. And also, it is true that if you live in Chicago, which is a blue city in a blue state, which has strict gun laws, you can very easily drive 40 minutes over into Indiana, or what is it, like 55, 60 minutes into Wisconsin, potentially, states with more relaxed gun laws. So everything is shades of gray. The gun accessibility is a factor, but it also impacts blue states that are in proximity to red states. Poverty is a major factor. Poverty is higher in red states. Education is a factor. Education is worse in red states. Cultural attitudes towards using guns to solve problems. I don't have data on what the differences are between blue and red states on that, but it is a factor. If you had states where culturally it's considered more appropriate to fight, to use physical violence, or to use guns to resolve interpersonal problems, well, that's going to be a factor for sure. Infrastructure and economic opportunity, which we know is lower in red states. GDP per capita, lower in red states. All of these elements are factors, and many of them actually are sort of a feedback loop where some cause others, and in turn, the worsening of those others comes back and worsens the initial causes. Proximate and ultimate causes are definitely something that needs to be considered. But the numbers really don't lie. It really is the case that gun mortality rates, remember, rate accounts for population. The rates of gun mortality on average higher in red states. The murder rate on average higher in red states. They don't like to admit it. When they do, they find some other way to blame the left. But this is the reality in which we live.